are live, Pablo.
Finally.
Sheesh.
Taking your time there, Liz.
Let's get into it. I'm Liz McDade, a huge Columbo fan and a small business owner living in Santa Cruz, California, and this is my brother.
I'm Paul McDade, an editor, assistant editor, working in the TV and film industry in Los Angeles. And this is Trenchcoat, Cigar, Peugeot, Wandering with Columbo. In each episode, we'll bring you a little Hollywood history, glamour, and behind the scenes as we walk you through Columbo, one of America's greatest TV detective series.
That's right. And right now, we are going to be reviewing A Case of Immunity from Season 5, Episode 2, and it first aired on October 12th, 1975.
Ooh.
And as you know, Paul, every episode has a snack and a drink that's inspired by the show. And tonight it is cake and champagne or coffee. Paul, what do you have over there?
I have some Sumatra coffee from Trader Joe's with some heavy cream, which helps my workout these days. And I have some Topo Chico, twist and lime.
Yeah.
And what do you have, Liz?
Wait, what about the cake?
Yeah, it was hard enough getting dinner tonight for Mother's Day.
All right. So, I see where your priorities are, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
I have some ice cream I might have after this. Some Tillamook ice cream. Does that count? No.
I guess. That's fine.
I got the coffee, man.
I know. Coffee's great. And I have champagne. I have like a little bottle of Ernest Rapinoe. And I also have a little cupcake from Gail's Bakery.
Oh, yeah, I saw that picture.
Yeah. And it's quite tasty.
I almost did go to a gluten-free place, but didn't have enough time today. And they closed early, so anyway, doesn't count, yeah.
All right, well, we'll get to a point in the show when our snack and drink comes up. There's actually a handful of foods and beverages in this episode, which was kind of fun.
Yeah.
And next up, we have Smoke Signals, where we read letters from listeners. And Paul, you were going to share a recent email.
Yeah. Chris sent this. Hey, my name is Chris Wynn, and I love your podcast. I listened to the port one today, and it got me excited for some port wine. Seriously, I love this episode and wondered if anyone else noticed that Donald wears an overcoat in Halloween just like Columbo wears. Could this have been an inspiration? Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I've seen clips of the movies. I don't know if I actually saw any of the Halloween. I saw any of those with Donald Pleasance. But it's funny because I remember Brett Halsey, the guy who was the golf instructor.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and he was married to one of the performers in the Lawrence Harvey episode. Lawrence Harvey's like ex-girlfriend or ex-wife. Anyway, Brett Halsey, he did European movies, and he did this Lucio Fulci film called Demonia, like demons in Italian or something. Demonia, yeah, Lucio Fulci. In that movie, there's a detective, an Italian detective, and he has an overcoat, but it's like kind of white, and it looks like he's like a doctor I was thinking that they wanted it to look like Columbo.
Interesting.
Because he kind of behaved like him a little bit. The guy's only like a couple scenes, and the movie's dubbed. But it was funny because I was thinking he had to have influenced a lot of people. Whether he influenced Donald for that one, I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
But it was cracking me up just thinking about when I watched that movie Demonia recently because of Brett Halsey. I was curious about some of his other stuff.
Demonia.
So, yeah. Thanks for the inquiry and the email, Chris.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. And anyone who wants to drop us a line, you can email us at trenchcoatcigar@gmail.com. All right, Paul, are you ready to jump into a case of immunity?
Yes.
I have an episode summary for us. In a case of immunity, a diplomat from a Middle Eastern country, a made up Middle Eastern country, murders a member of his security team and he steals over $500,000. He tries to make it look like the work of an insider and an anti government protester, but Columbo is hot on his tail. All right, now we're going to jump into this one. It opens on a gloved hand opening a safe. It's actually quite quiet. And we see a very young Hector Elizondo. And we also meet Sal Mineo's character standing by. And papers are taken out of the safe. They're lit on fire. And then the safe is closed again and a bomb is placed on the safe, a little bit of that C4 putty stuff. And the two men synchronize their watches. One of the men spray paints on the walls in what appears to be Arabic writing. And now the Hector Elizondo character makes a phone call down to another office where Yusef Alafa is working. And Hector's character asks him to come upstairs. Yusef does, and he says, "What happened, Hassan?" And then Hassan hits Yusef Alafa on the back of his head and kills him. Now, the young man, played by Sal Mineo, takes off his robe, and I looked up what the proper name of the robes that men and women wear in some Middle Eastern countries. That's pronounced thwob. I believe I'm saying that correctly. So he takes off his thwob, and he also has a headscarf on called a keffiyeh. I think I'm saying that right, but my apologies if not. And this has like a red and white checkered pattern, which is a pattern of fabric that's commonly seen in Jordan and Saudi Arabia. So he takes these off to reveal his street clothes, his American style street clothes. And this is where Hassan Saleh, played by Hector Elizondo, has really specific instructions for Sal Mineo's character. And his name is Rahman. And he tells Rahman that the explosion has to happen immediately after the phone call that he is to make at 4 p.m. He's got to make it look like the protesters are to blame. Apparently, a gun has been jammed in one of the guards who waits by the gates so that Rahman can get out of the compound without getting shot. And Hassan tells him that you will be known as a hero for unmasking and disposing of this vermin.
Your name will be remembered wide and far.
Exactly. Exactly. Paul, did you know this is not the first time that Hector Elizondo has been in a movie featuring a fictional country?
Was it Moon over Parador, the other one, or something? Or no?
I don't know about that one, but I'm thinking of Princess Diaries.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah. What does he play in that?
I think he plays the person who helps Anne Hathaway transform into a princess.
That's a Gary Marshall film too, probably, right?
I have no idea.
He acted in all of that guy's films.
It's one that my girls liked when they were younger.
Mm-hmm.
So in that one, he's from Genovia, or Anne Hathaway's grandmother is from Genovia, which is a made-up place. Okay. And in this Columbo, he and everyone in this movie is from a made-up country called Swaria, or Swari.
I think Swaria.
Yeah.
And
I Googled trying to find out, was this actually Arabic writing, and some of the language that they speak, is it actually Arabic? And all I found was a couple of Reddit threads where some people were saying that yes, it was actually Arabic, but I did not get any kind of official verification from a native Arabic speaker. So maybe someone who's listening can tell us, were they actually writing in Arabic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I imagine they have to be careful with all that. That's why they did the made up place too. But there, in the 70s, there was a bombing of a Lebanese consulate on Hollywood Boulevard. and
Mm.
also the United Nations in Los Angeles was also bombed in 1974.
Oh, wow.
The Lebanese consulate was 1972. So I'm sure those ideas, because it was like the PLO
Mm-hmm.
and the Jewish Defense League were supposedly responsible for the Lebanese bombing, and then the other one was the PLO. Different articles on it. I didn't dig too deep in it. It had to be, to me, it was just like there was so much of that. I mean, it's still going on, obviously, but there was so
Mm-hmm.
much of that at that time, and like at airports and hijackings and protests in the 70s, that it's easy to like sort of cherry pick ideas from that.
Yeah.
But it's such a great place to put Columbo for sort of this mystery he's got to solve.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a little bit of poking around in Middle Eastern political history of that time also, wondering like what was the inspiration. I didn't look at what was going on in LA at the time, so that's cool. And I'll share a little later, I'll share like what I learned basically.
No, now, Liz.
You're
Now.
going to have to wait, Paul. Patience. Okay, so Hassan Saleh heads out of the compound or the legation with his driver. He's headed to the Los Angeles Police Department. And on his way out, his car is greeted by protesters and their signs. I do have a note about where this was filmed. You might know this also. It's Harold Lloyd's Greenacres estate in Beverly Hills. And this location was used in a lot of other TV shows and movies throughout the 60s and the 80s. There is a really great little YouTube clip from a Los Angeles news station sort of highlighting the history of this home. I would recommend people Google it if they want to learn more or see photos, but it was built by a silent film star named Harold Lloyd. He was a comedy star. He purchased 15 acres in Beverly Hills, built this giant home, 44 rooms, 35,000 square feet, probably some guest houses on top of that.
Wow.
And he lived there until he passed away in 1971. And when he passed away, he wanted his home to be made available to the public as a museum. And it was for about a year. And then his foundation ran out of money. And they had to auction off the home. They auctioned it, the home, huge home, 15 acres for $1.1 million. Wow. So I think that was probably quite a bargain, even at the time. And then the person who purchased it subdivided the acres and sold each acre for $1.1 million, but kept the home and 5 acres. So you can still see the home, through videos and probably drone footage or something. It's still standing.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it looks super pretty.
Yeah,
Okay, so
had you heard of Harold Lloyd?
No, I haven't. I had not.
Yeah, I'd see you might have seen footage of him. There's this clock tower scene where he like pulling the clock tower out. He's like in a high rise, holding onto it for dear life.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be cool to check it out. Yeah, it sounded like he was quite the star.
Yeah, the watching those silent films, I really enjoy. I watched some Rudolph Valentino films, and it's just interesting just to look at the tint of the film, the acting, and then the music that they might have chosen. Some of them are very fun to watch. The one of Gloria Swanson's, which was with Eric von Stroheim as the director, and I think she fired him. That film had some beautiful, weird, scary scenes in it. I may have mentioned this before, but usually it's better if you can like get a wall to project on, like if you have a little computer or video projector that you can do it, makes it that much more fun to watch, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen a silent film in years. Should put that on my to-do list. It's like a different experience.
Yeah.
All right, Paul, it's time to go check in with the police. There is a meeting happening at the Los Angeles Police Department with Hassan Saleh about his king's upcoming visit. Columbo walks in, and one of the other officers looks very confused that Columbo has shown up to this meeting. And then it dawns on him that it was supposed to be Captain Colimo who was invited to the meeting.
Have they ever used that name before?
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
We need to meet this Captain Kalimo.
Yeah.
So it wasn't supposed to be Columbo's job to show up and meet Hassan Salah, but he stays anyway. And at one point, he steps on Hassan's thwob, which is a bit embarrassing. And this is when Hassan gets that phone call that we heard him instruct Rahman to make at a certain time. So he gets this phone call while he's in the office with the cops. He pretends he's talking to Yusef, tells everyone that he's talking to Yusef. After the call, they're kind of going over security, and he says, "Oh, we won't need any security inside the legation, just, kind of moving around the city or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to go back to Greenacres, or the legation. Right after this phone call, a man in the legation hears a noise, stands up, but he doesn't go to investigate. And Rahman leaves the house. He's made the explosion happen. He leaves the house in his American street clothes, driving a car. He smashes through the gate and almost runs over some protesters. He doesn't get shot because the guard's gun was jammed, like Hassan told him it would be. Okay, so we're going back to the police department again. There's a lot of back and forth from the police department to Greenacres, or the legation, in this one. And Columbo is trying to get I don't know if he's trying to get a candy bar or a pack of cigarettes.
Cigarettes.
I mean, what is he getting there?
He says every time, like he's trying to get it out, like it must have taken his money before. And he totally ignoring everybody.
Yeah, he's got his priorities. I'm not sure what he's getting because he doesn't smoke cigarettes.
Didn't you have a poster of a candy thing like that? Like a candy?
Me?
No, you just had a poster. Yeah, you had a poster that was like sweet treats or something.
Yeah, I had some like
a 7-Eleven type thing.
Yes, I had this giant 7-Eleven poster in my bedroom in high school.
How did you get that, Liz?
Yeah, I stole it.
Did you really?
Yeah, I know. It was outside by the gas pumps.
Was that when I was working at 7-Eleven?
No.
Because you and your brother Joe, his little buddies, used to go in there in El Paso. They'd get a big gulp, and they'd put chips in the big gulp.
What?
Yeah, I found out this later, and they would, I was the cashier there.
Oh no!
Yeah. Yep.
Poor Paul.
I caught one of this little tiny girl who hung out with them, trying to steal an Instamatic camera or something. I was like, okay.
Oh, not just chips. Yeah. Come on.
No. She got. I forget her name. You probably knew who she was.
Oh, I wouldn't dare speak her name even if I knew it.
I already had like guys who look like they've been walking for miles, probably come in and steal, cigarettes.
Oh.
Anyway, those are from another time. Those stories.
Back in the day.
Back to the litigation, Liz.
Back to the litigation, Paul. All right, so Columbo's trying to get his candy, cigarettes, we don't know. And then he learns that there was just a robbery and a murder at the embassy that day. So he has to go straight away to the legation. So now we're back at the legation, and he has to fight his way into the building. Everyone's trying to turn him away, their own security. But Hassan Salah greets him and helps him get past the guards into the house. And I have a little note here that Hector Elizondo plays mildly annoyed, but keeping it together very well. Like, you can tell, he's clearly annoyed, but he just doesn't let it show very easily.
Yeah, he's really good at doing these subtle changes of upsetness, but then it's okay. Like when he steps on his, what's it called?
Thwob.
When he first steps on his thwob, and then he looks at him like, what, how dare you? And then it's like, it's quite all right. Like he's like, I forget what exactly he says, but so there's this wonderful, throughout the whole episode, he displays that sort of taking charge, disciplinarian, but then it's quite all right. We will honor, we honor you. Of course, please. He's really shines in this role.
Yeah, he does. All right, and next up, we're going to bump into one of our dear old pals here, Paul.
Sal Mineo.
No,
Just kidding,
somebody
Mike
else.
Lally. Mike Lally. Michael
Yes.
Lalowski. Yes. Yeah, he's great. His
Mike
interaction with Columbo's great. It's a little more
is so
fuller
good.
than usual.
Yes. I actually
You
wrote
blocking
down
my
his
you
line.
blocking my shot.
You want to move a little.
He does a good
Yes.
job. He's a little hesitant, but he does a
Yeah.
good job, I thought.
Yeah. So Mike Lally, recurring background character, plays the crime scene photographer, and they're there in the office where the murder took place, documenting the body, the explosion, the burnt papers on the ground. And all the cops, this is something that we've seen in other Columbos. There's a lot of hubbub happening around and in the crime scene, but Columbo's just kind of in his own world, noticing small details. So he's not listening. He's like looking at the ashes. He's looking at the guard where he was hit on the back of the head. He's looking at the guard's gun and how it was still holstered. And so Columbo is immediately confused by this crime scene and, suspicious that it's not what it appears to be.
But yeah, Jay Varela, he's the Captain Ortega. He's the one talking so loudly, walking around everybody. Like when Columbo first walks in there. He was in Candidate for Crime as Sergeant Rojas, but it's nice to see him again. His delivery is a little, stilted, I thought. He had a very long career, really, really good career. But I thought he was a cool character. It would have been nice to see him again or have more of him in this episode. He's just in that one scene talking to someone else the whole time. He's with glasses, He's got the glasses.
Yeah. I'm looking at his picture on IMDb. Yeah, good catch, Paul. I was kind of just looking at Columbo in that whole scene, so I didn't quite catch any of it.
You're just mesmerized by Peter Falk. Just say it, Liz.
I guess so.
Like, you don't care about anybody else but Peter Falk.
Apparently I don't. And Mike Lally, don't forget.
And Michael, yeah.
I will notice him as well. Nobody saw anyone leave the crime scene, so he doesn't have any obvious leads at this point. And he's kind of wandering around the legation. He walks into a room where everyone stops what they're doing and looks up at him. He's clearly, entered the wrong room.
Mm-hmm.
And then he makes his way to the gate where the car smashed through. He learns that the rifle didn't work that the guard was holding. And so now he knows that only two people could have caused that to happen. One of them is dead, Yusef Alafa, and the other one is Hassan. So Columbo's kind of, automatically zooming in on who he thinks might have something to do with this murder. And now here comes the coffee that inspired our drink.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Yusef Alafa's office and he's poking around. He's interested in where the key to the gun room or the gun cabinet is kept. He speaks with a woman who works there named Xenia, who's wearing a very pretty red dress. He learns that Xenia gave him the mug that was holding his coffee. He would have filled that mug at 3 p.m., but the coffee on Yusef's desk appears untouched and cold. So now, again, Columbo is wondering what really happened.
That's Burton Miller as did costumes in this one.
Okay, yeah. They were pretty subdued. Part of it is that it's the story. The story is about a lot of security guards wearing guard uniforms, and even the king is wearing a military uniform. There's a little bit of fun stuff at the party near the end. There's not a whole lot.
Yeah, which makes sense too, because this is traditionally, for this kind of a show, that looks like I feel like they did a pretty good job of the looks and stuff. But when he's speaking with Xenia about the cold coffee, she starts to leave and he's not looking at her, he's looking forward, and he asks her says something else to her, and it's a really great delivery. Like he's just really in the zone. I loved his acting there.
I like her line where she says that the mug was engraved or inscribed.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, I'd rather not translate it. It's earthy humor.
Yeah. That's a good writing. I like that.
Yeah. I thought there was a lot of really good writing. Earthy humor. And then some of the lines that Hassan Salah says, they're kind of, quotable types of statements. So like in the opening scene, he's telling Rockman's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm gonna try, and he's like, a child tries, a
Yeah.
man must succeed.
Yes.
Um, and then I have a
A
couple
child?
others.
Yeah. Yes. No, no. I remember that. I love that. I love because I watched the episode a couple times, and watching that was great between them two, especially with Sal Mineo. Sal Mineo was a huge star when he was just a young kid.
Oh,
He
I didn't know
stayed
that he was a
active.
child
Yeah.
actor.
Well, I mean, he did Broadway was like his first role. He was working with Eli Wallach and some other huge people, and he never stopped. I mean, he had trouble. We can talk about it later.
No, Paul. Now,
But yeah, no, he was in Rebel Without a Cause with James
hmm
Dean.
hmm
He did a bunch of other. He like with John Cassavetes. He was in a film that I watched where they're in the streets fighting in gangs and stuff. That one was pretty good. I think that got lukewarm reviews, but he did some outstanding. Like Dino, I think was one where he's like a juvenile kid. He really impressed so many people at that time when he was younger. And Rebel Without a Cause is really cool. Have you seen that?
yeah, I have.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I didn't realize it all took place there at the, or not all of it, but it all seems
That's
to
great.
be like, just like the majority of the film is over one day. I mean, there's an opening with drunken credits with James Dean being drunk on the ground and stuff. The director Nicholas Ray said that Sal Mineo was the one who was sort of not acting. He was acting, but he was the part, And if you like James Dean's great, but there are some moments when he's drunk where he kind of goes in and out, and it's kind of weird. Like he waits to say something, and you're just it doesn't seem very intoxicated. I had never seen the film. I'd always seen clips, famous clips and stuff. It's very interesting, and then the sort of the backstory to a lot of it is kind of weird. But I think this was one of the last roles that Sal Mineo did was this episode. He did Hawaii Five O and stuff like that. He wanted more work, but he just wasn't getting it. Nobody wanted to. He couldn't save money very well. He spent it really quickly, and he used to have a huge factory, like paying for his parents' new house and paying for people paying for bodyguards, paying for people to write letters in his fan club. I mean, his family used to do all these things for him, and he just got so huge that they had to have this sort of like factory, and he didn't know how to do accounting, and they had accountants and he spent too much. It's kind of crazy. I read most of really good book by Michael Gregg, Michaud. He got in 2 interviews with Jill Hayworth, who was Sal's wife, and then Courtney Burr, who was Sal's, I think, sort of his main partner at the end there. It was a man, Courtney. Courtney's dad, I think, was a very huge person. So I think he's a Courtney Burr the third or something. But Michael Gregg, Michaud, did a really good job getting so much information from those two and covering so much more. There's a few books, one by H. Paul Jeffers, who was a good friend of his, and then there's a couple other ones I had conversations with elders I know, and it's a different artist interviewed by this one particular person. It was very interesting to read about him. So at this point in his life, when he did Columbo, he struggled to have a career. He wanted to make films. He directed plays. He directed some pretty hardcore stuff for the time that featured people naked on stage, some tragic stuff. There's this one that takes place in prison by a Canadian writer. But Sal did it in New York and he did it in LA. He directed it. I can't remember I think he starred in one of them, but so he always had all these ideas to get, like the Gene Krupa story, the drummer. That's a movie, and I think he wanted to do that. So he was at a young age, he was trying to find scripts for himself that would get him out of the teenage idea that people had of him, but he never quite got back to doing those feature films that made him so famous. And even like Peter Bogdanovich, the director who did The Last Picture Show, Mineo had the rights to that. And he befriended Bogdanovich on set on this John Ford film where he played an Indian, I forget what kind of tribe, like if it was Cheyenne or Pueblo Indian. But he became friends with Peter Bogdanovich. Bogdanovich was writing for Esquire magazine, and really liked Sal, and they were like the youngest on that film, youngest people around. As they became friends, Sal said, "The Last Picture Show would make a great film. You should get the rights." Because he couldn't get the film made. But there's a couple books he would have people write treatments, or he'd get people to be interested, and a lot of people were not interested. He had a company that he formed with Courtney Burr, his best friend and lover, called Serpentine Productions or something like that, and it was in London where they formed it. But I don't think they ever got anything quite off the ground. But he would just spend money. He didn't know how to control the spending of money, and he hid his life of like being with Courtney to his family, I think, and his family didn't like that. I think somebody in his family, according to Michael's book, burned like his letters.
Oh, wow.
Courtney's letters. Yeah, they like went into the house. They might have even broken into the house and burned the letters.
Oh, gosh.
Because Sal died. I think he was in his. He was young. He might have been in 30s or 40s, but he was stabbed. It goes over all this stuff in that book. It's a long book, so sorry to keep going on. But so when he did this film, I was very curious. He's obviously good. He does a really good performance. Like, he's very serious and tense, and looks up to Hector, and Hector is just like leading him the whole time.
A lamb to slaughter.
Yeah, this was a huge show. So I guess for Sal, he felt like he wasn't that great a thing, being in a Columbo. He'd rather be directing his own movie, or because a lot of the films he did, I think in the end he wasn't that proud of them. He just took them for work.
Yeah,
for money.
I didn't know all that about him. I did know he had a tragic death. I also thought he did a really good job in this episode. He was very convincing, especially in the next scene where he takes a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get there, there's just a couple things that happen in this scene that are worth pointing out. So Columbo immediately shares some of his observations or concerns with Hassan, and Hassan, like all of the murderers, tries to offer reasoning. Hassan is also open to it because he's clearly staged this whole thing to eventually point to Rahman. So at first he's saying, this was an outside protester, but now Columbo says, I want to know, I know that one staff member was not here. I think this is an inside job, and I know that one staff member was not here when this occurred. And so we learned that Rahman's told people he's going to New York, or, that's what Hassan is saying. But they call the hotel in New York, and they say that he's never checked in.
His line about the vase, Columbo's line about his wife having one just like that, that almost felt like one of his least good lies. How he butters up the villain. It was almost like he didn't care or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird. What do you think about the vase? It's like, oh, my wife has one that looks just like that. And he's like, oh, this is 3rd century. It's $5,000 or whatever he says.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to wonder, was Columbo just trying to poke the bear here, or because he often says things like that and you don't quite know.
That's true.
If he's being sincere or not. Like, I remember, I can't remember which one, where he tells a painter, like an artistic painter, like, oh, his wife paints too. She gets those like color by number paintings.
Oh, yeah. Well, here, I almost felt like there was some improv going on between them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it felt really good. Like, because he did some of that. Here, I almost felt like Hector Elizondo could have pulled that off. He's did some theater before, but he's like one of the longest working actors and solid working actors.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's move on. It's time for a late night phone call, Paul. Hassan calls Rahman, who's sitting in bed smoking. This is the scene I was mentioning where, like, he seems really anxious, but in a very authentic way. Not it was just well done. And Rahman is saying, I read in the newspapers that there was all this money missing from the safe, and there was no money in the safe. And Hassan says, oh, don't worry about the American newspapers. I'll meet you in an hour in that place that we picked before. And then Hassan tells the security at the legation he's going to bed, he's not to be disturbed. But he doesn't go to bed. He puts on American clothes, a suit and a tie, and he leaves the property. It looks like he's going out of like a secret door or something.
Mm-hmm. His acting, I noted, I thought was really good. The way he's looking around,
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was very like, wow. He's like, he internally had that kind of like scared, not scared, but just like, oh crap, I hope no one sees me,
Yeah, yeah.
like waiting for it, like how to behave if someone
Mm-hmm.
actually walks upon him.
Yeah. He gets into a car and then he takes off to meet Rahman Habib. They meet up in a mountain or like on a mountain side, cliff side. There's no information about where this cliff area is in LA. I looked on IMDb, I looked on various websites. That's a cool little spot. And they pull over on the side of the road. He gives, oh yeah, here's another one of his quotes, his quotables. When Hassan meets up with Rahman, he says, "Panic can only bring on fear and defeat in this life." And he gives Rahman a passport, $10,000, and a plane ticket to burn. And he says, "Your name will be shouted loudly in the streets of Swari."
Oh, that's right. That's when he says that.
But of course, we know that's not true. Hassan hits Rahman in the back of the head, pushes him into his car, and he notices that Rahman is not wearing his eyeglasses, which he normally wears, and he pulls them out of his pocket, puts them on his face, and then he gets the car rolling over the edge of the cliff that they're parked at. And now we head to the morgue. But before we move on, is there anything else that you wanted to say about Sal, Paul? That's kind of the last time we get to see the poor guy.
Reading about him was very interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of sad to read it. It was like he was always sort of fighting and struggling. What's interesting is that he was nominated for a couple of Oscars. I think he was the youngest person to be nominated for 2 Oscars, Rebel Without a Cause and Exodus. And Rebel Without a Cause, a lot of people consider that his character to be the first portray of someone who was gay. The original screenwriter of that, I don't know if he would agree with that, but regardless, when you see the film, Nicholas Ray kind of rewrote some of the stuff, and Nicholas Ray had some experiences with men before at some point, because he and Sal met each other much later in life and had really good conversation. Courtney was talked about them meeting each other again. And another interesting thing, sort of a little bit of a parallel to his role in this, is in the movie Exodus. He plays an Israeli sort of freedom fighter. I think he's a bomber, but he was tortured and abused by the Germans. And it's when a lot of Jewish people were taken from Germany, and they were sort of in exile in Greece by the British. The British had them, and the British had controlled Israel, had taken over Israel, and the movie is about getting all the people in the Jewish Exodus, I think is the name of the boat, maybe, to Israel. And it's the first time this many would be there, or something like that. And because I think the UN had to vote on whether or not they would let them have a place there. So anyway, it's just kind of interesting in a way that there's a little bit of that with the old guard, the new guard, with this at this litigation place.
Mm-hmm.
There's the idea that Hector Elizondo holds up the old guard,
Yeah.
and then the prince, who we meet later, is like the new ways, open to new thinking,
Mm-hmm.
like the protesters,
Mm-hmm.
versus bombing. It's sort of like it's always this back and forth, the hate that hate made. It's just kind of interesting. But anyway, Exodus was like a big film. I think it was a big hit, and he was nominated for that film. I enjoyed the film. It was interesting. I mean, the story is a powerful story, but and his wife, Sal's wife, is in that. Jill Hayworth. She plays the young. They weren't married then, but that's where he met her, I believe, and she's his love interest in the film.
Oh, okay.
But Paul Newman's in it. and Ava Marie Saint. Yeah, I liked reading about Sal. I'd always heard about him, and he certainly was a sort of experienced a lot of things. He sounded like a really like kind guy,
Mm-hmm.
although he hurt like Jill. He hurt her pretty bad at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a very interesting actor.
And did they discover who killed him?
Yeah, it was. I think there was different theories, but there in the end, the writer I was telling you about, Michael Gregg, he said that he does a whole court thing at the end of the book. At one point, they thought it was. I think they didn't know who the killer was, but later on, I think a jury found this young man guilty who supposedly was just it was random. He was sort of a robber, young guy who he had troubled home life, and he ended up being very violent over the years. And Sal happened to be he came home from rehearsals or something. I can't remember where. He was screaming. People heard him scream. Like there was like people who heard Sal being stabbed and heard him screaming. I think in the end, but I would read the book if you're interested to get closer to what happened because I think this guy ended up bragging about it in prison. And so, he told a couple people, and those people want to get off, get their sentences reduced. And so something like that. But it's not simple. Like the whole case. Originally someone had said it was a Caucasian person with blonde hair. So yeah, I didn't study and read up. I just kind of skimmed through some of that because it was just like, whoa, this is a lot.
Yeah, kind of heavy. All right. Well, poor guy. He's gone, and now he's in the morgue. And Columbo's in the morgue. Do you recognize the doctor?
He's another. He played the coroner before, right?
Yeah, it's the same coroner from Forgotten Lady, and he was the camera salesperson in Negative Reaction. So this is his third and final appearance.
Is it does he have the same name or is just coroner? Yeah.
I didn't look at the exact name given to him in Forgotten Lady.
His real name. Do you know his real name, Liz?
Is it Harvey Gold?
Yeah, it's Harvey Gold.
I can't believe I remember that.
he did a film that I just watched, and he had a nice little role in it. You see him pretty predominantly in 3 sections, and he's got lots of lines. It's a film called The Nickel Ride, and I projected it. The Nickel Ride, yeah. And it was I really enjoyed this film. Robert Mulligan directed it, who directed To Kill a Mockingbird. Mm-hmm. Eric Roth, this is one of his first scripts, wrote it. He wrote Killers of the Flower Moon, The Insider, Forrest Gump, Dune.
Oh, wow.
This film, I don't know how Nickel Ride did. The camera operator is the Blade Runner camera operator. Jordan starts with a C. Anyway, it just had all these great ingredients. Jordan Cornenweth was the camera operator for Nickel Ride. I wanted to see this actor again, Harvey Gold. So I found this film. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know what to expect. I could see how people would be disappointed in the film. So I don't know how it did, but I really enjoyed it. Like it had a lot of. It reminded me of the Mayor of Kingston a little bit, the television series on Paramount, Taylor Sheridan series with Jeremy Renner.
Okay.
It had a little element of that, of the pilot anyway, the pilot episode, but just a lot of key people put that film together. And the lead actor, Jason Miller, he was in The Exorcist. I loved him. All the actors are really good.
We'll put the name in our show notes of that movie, Nickel Ride, if people want to check that out.
Yeah, that was a great find for me. I could, I like stuff that's a little more offbeat and takes its time.
Yeah.
But if you like good writing and enjoy Eric Roth's other films, you can see like how skilled of a writer he is. It doesn't hurt that you have great actors and a strong director and great camera operator, to bring those ideas together, right? So then what happens, Liz, after the coroner?
Okay, so coroner, this is where Columbo discovers the contact lenses that Rahman was wearing. And so again, things are coming together, and you can see Columbo have like a moment of realization here that, this is not what it looks like because someone must have placed the glasses on him. You can't wear contact lenses and glasses at the same time. All right, so now we go back to the legation. Again, Columbo is looking and touching lots of beautiful valuables while he waits for Hassan. And Hassan comes in and has to kind of fix everything that Columbo has touched on these tables. It's never quite clear to me why these things are out on tables, if they're having some kind of special exhibit or if they just live there. I don't understand.
Yeah, why? Yeah, I didn't either. But it is interesting. Maybe it's like to show the splendor of what the country has in terms of treasure.
Yes, but it's kind of like laid out like an estate sale, or I don't know. It's kind of random.
It is a little odd because if it was that valuable, well, I guess for the place it would be show you the splendor, and the public usually isn't allowed in there, so they can trust. But it's funny how he leans on that, and Hector's subtle reaction of like his eyes, like, and he closes his eyelids, like, oh my gosh, he just knocked it over. He almost knocked it over.
Yes, yeah. Columbo leans against a pillar, and as he leans on this pillar, this giant vase starts shaking. It's like gonna crash to the ground, but somehow it doesn't. Okay, so Columbo is there. He's returning the things that he found on Rahman to Hassan, including an envelope that Hassan, planted on him. And Hassan's like, oh, you didn't open this envelope. It was obviously some kind of prop that Hassan wanted. My take was that Hassan wanted Columbo to open this envelope and buy this theory, this hypothetical murderous plot that Hassan...
Is it a letter written by the people who want to take over the legation, or whatever, like stating their plans? This fictional letter.
I know. This is where I have issue. One of the issues I have with this episode is like, it's not really clear to me what Hassan's motivation was, unless it was just to steal over $500,000, which, I mean, obviously people murder for way less than that. I don't know exactly what he was trying to make it look like. Or, yeah, I don't know. I'm confused.
It's like a statement of some sort, maybe. Not unlike the stuff they spray painted on the walls, maybe. Like, your country does this, this, and this is why we've done what we did. Maybe that would be in the letter. And he's just a crook, right? He's just not telling anybody the truth, even the guy who did the crime with him. He just wants the money, right? And power, perhaps, because he's already in a great position of power to trick all these people. They all trust him, but don't realize that he's the snake there, the top guard, everybody.
Right. Yeah, I guess if I think about it that way, Paul, maybe it was a letter that could show that the protesters would take to be like disparaging to the current government, and that they were going to like release it to get more support for the protesters. Is that what you're saying? You think?
Yeah, something like that. But why wouldn't Columbo just take a look at it? Is it to show?
Wouldn't that be something that Hassan wouldn't want to exist at all? Like, would he make up some damning information about his government?
If he thought I could clear him absolve him from any kind of, he might be the murderer, sure, right? Because the protesters are already there. They're already protesting. Yeah. I think when you're creating this fictional land and nation or what have you, you can play around with truth very easily. Colombo, trench coat, cigar, la Peugeot. Colombo, pas de gun, pas de look. Colombo, trench coat, cigar, la Peugeot.
Well, anyhow, we will never know exactly what the reasoning behind that little made-up letter was, but we do learn that Columbo's going to verify where the $10,000 came from. So he gets a little wrapper off of a different stack of cash from Hassan. This is another moment where Hassan is annoyed, quite annoyed. Columbo says, well, I can see you're busy. I have more questions, but I'll just go out on my own and kind of poke around.
He says wander.
Wander.
He says wander, Liz.
Hey, that's what we do.
Yeah, he says, I'll just wander around. Thank you very much. I'll just wander around. I'm just going to wander around. Yeah.
And this, Hassan can't handle this. He's like, what? Well, tell me. I want to know.
Yeah. He's just leading him to his fall.
Yes. So Columbo shares about the contact lenses and the glasses that there's no way Rahman would have put the glasses on while he was wearing contacts. Mm-hmm. So Columbo suspects that Rahman Habib was also murdered. And Hassan says, oh, well, he must have conspired with one of these revolutionary student protesters. Columbo moves on. He chats with the new head of security who's taken over for Youssef Alafa. And he gets a little more information that Rahman could have gotten the passport from the legation. He learns that Hassan was supposedly in his room all night and did not leave the legation. And then he goes outside and chats with the protesters. Did you recognize a very famous actor out in the protester?
No, who?
Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, he's out there?
Yeah, he's one of the protesters.
Cool.
Yeah, you can get a really short glimpse of him at 40 minutes, 13 seconds. Mm-hmm. And then there's a much better, clearer look at him in an upcoming scene.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I still can't get screen grabs anymore, Paul. I had that joyous day where I could take screen grabs. Anyhow, so Columbo goes to the protesters. He doesn't talk with Jeff Goldblum. He talks with a different guy. They did not see a car leave that night, but he is eating a very yummy looking sandwich on soft white bread.
So who's this guy? This guy was good, right?
Yeah, he was really good. Although I have to say, Paul, when they were filming this, when I was watching this scene, I started to feel a little bit dizzy and nauseous because of the way Columbo's walking in a circle. Like the protesters, they kind of they march around in a circle in the driveway. And he's walking in a circle talking to this protester, and the camera is following them in just like this continuous 360-degree circle. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's just me, but it was a little hard to watch.
I thought it was okay. This is Bart Braverman, second picketer.
There you go.
He had a really good career in terms of steady work, it looks like.
You didn't read his autobiography, Paul?
Well, you said just do 2 this time for this episode, so that's all I could handle.
All right, well, you got your homework. We need to learn more about Bart Braverman for our next episode.
Okay, he was an alligator. He played Kemp in the movie Alligator.
All right, I guess I'll let you
Jaws. It's written by John Sayles, the great director writer. All right, moving on, Paul.
Moving on, Paul. So now we're at a party, and the king is here. And the king of Swari is meeting lots of other heads of state or ambassadors, important international people. Columbo has shown up to the party unannounced, and Hassan is trying to pull the king away from Columbo, but the king is so gracious, and he speaks to Columbo. He's very kind, and he tells Columbo, please call on him if I can help in any way. We learn a little bit about the relationship between the king and Hassan in this scene, where there's some tension between the two of them. Hassan is set in the ways of the king's father and grandfather, and the new king wants to be more modern and aligning more with neighbors and being more international, perhaps, or just more global in his perspective.
This was the second to last role, television role he had.
The king?
Mm-hmm.
Did he pass away too?
This guy was 41. He died of AIDS-related illness on April 1st, 1986, according to the person who wrote the mini biography. Just has an email. I really like this actor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I thought he comes across as very warm, present. He's in the moment there with Columbo.
And he has that sort of power too. He was in a movie called Bless the Beasts and Children, which I think is loosely based on a true story of these kids who hunters used to be able to, like not too long ago, I think in the 70s, used to be able to just shoot buffalo at this one park or whatever. Like you could pay to shoot buffalo, and these kids went to protest, and they made a film about it. And he played the leader of the kids in the film. And that's called Bless the Beasts and Children. It came out in 1971.
That's a cool title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Stanley Kramer, the big director. It's based on the novel.
All right, well, it's time for cake, Paul.
All right.
We are moving into the kitchen here, and we see all kinds of beautiful cakes in the kitchen, which inspired our snack. Columbo goes into the kitchen, and then Xenia shows up and has a piece of cake and a cup of coffee for Columbo. Apparently, the king himself asked her to bring that to him.
Really? The king?
The king himself?
I love the moving, all the. Anyway, sorry, Liz, go ahead.
No, you go, Paul.
I love all the direction of the actors and all the food and stuff in this scene. It's so good, so real.
Yeah, there's a lot happening in here. It reminds me a little bit of the kitchen scene in Now You See Him, which we haven't reviewed yet, but there's some fun kitchen action coming our way soon, Paul.
Cool.
Columbo chats with Xenia. He's trying to find out if there's any way that Rahman made a phone call on Wednesday. So I believe this is the day before he went missing and Youssef was murdered. But we learned that Rahman was in the code room all day on that day until 4 p.m. or whatever. So there's no way that he could have made a phone call at the time that a phone call was supposedly made by him. Then Columbo smells beef. And he makes his way towards the smell. He tries to taste it, and the guards are immediately on him, telling him, "Don't touch that. That's the king's food."
Mm-hmm.
But they learn that he's hungry. They want to feed him. So they start bringing him small bowls of food. It's French food. It's not actually soiree food. It's like French food.
Escargot.
And escargot is one of the items that could have been our snack for tonight, Paul, but I decided to go with cake.
Thanks, Liz. Cake.
I know, so lame. Escargot would have been way more cool. Have you had escargot?
Yeah, remember with the Lawrence Harvey chess episode?
Oh, right.
Dad's favorite episode?
Right.
Sorry, Dad, she forgot so quickly.
So quickly, we probably talked about that like 2 years ago, Paul.
Yeah, just 2 years ago. And just like that, it's gone. I love the chef who like kind of fawns over him a little bit, but is also a little shifty-eyed towards Columbo. That guy's great. He's like, he sets down the silverware, gets the napkin. No. Oh, is he another ones? Is he another Columbo's?
Xenia.
The actress Brioni Farrell, who plays Xenia. I watched her in a Bionic Woman episode where she played Zelda.
Yeah.
But her face is covered through much of the episode. Mm-hmm. Did you ever watch that, The Bionic Woman?
Yeah.
Lindsay Wagner. She was good. The actress, though, back to her, Brioni Farrell, she did a lot of stuff. She did like one called The Student Nurses, which was like a Roger Corman. But I wanted to watch some more of her stuff. She was in the Tales from the Dark Side. But I liked her in the Columbo. I thought she was really good. Really personable, but also sort of keeping the sort of protocol, listening.
So Columbo has some food, and then I don't remember exactly how he and Hassan get pulled away again, but the two of them are now talking more privately, and Columbo explains that he is wondering about this money that Rahman was found with because it was taken out of the bank after the safe was robbed. Hassan gets a bit upset at this. He says, what are you insinuating? Um, you keep seeming to be accusing me of something. And then Hassan pulls out this thick envelope full of cash. And he says, all of the money I pulled out on that day is right here. You can count it. Columbo says, oh, I was never trying to insinuate that you, Hassan, were guilty of something. But if you will let me, talk to other people in the legation, that will help me solve this murder, and he'll come back another time. So now we are back at the police department, and there is a member of the State Department at the police department with one of the captains, and they're waiting to meet with Columbo. And the State Department representative says that Columbo is irritating Hassan. He needs to stay away. Columbo says he would stay away, but Hassan is the murderer, but he is still gathering proof. He's going to write a letter of apology and personally deliver it to Hassan. So this will make Hassan thrilled.
Mm-hmm. I love this turn. It's a realistic turn. Columbo, you totally know he would do the right thing, quote unquote, and write the letter and apology. But it was great that the lawyer seems a little skeezy.
Mm-hmm. Super skeezy with that little bitty mustache.
Yeah.
That's like villain mustache.
Yeah, he's a casting director, but he did a lot of acting too. But yeah, I love this scene. I think it's well acted and great part to the story. That's what people in positions of power do. They throw their weight around to change things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally.
Especially when they're guilty.
Right. Yes. All right, back to the legation. So we do a lot of back and forth from the police department to the legation. We're back again. We're outside the gate. The protesters have intensified, I think, because the king is in town. So the protesters are really showing up now. And this is the scene where you can get a much clearer image of Jeff Goldblum, the Fly, at 56 minutes. Columbo learns here that the protesters actually like the king, that they're not protesting the king. They really just don't like his advisors. The king is progressive. The king is more modern, and so they're excited for him, but they don't love all the people who are advising him. So this is where I put my little tiny bit of Googling notes here about what was happening in the Middle East that could have inspired little nuggets of this storyline. And I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but around the same time in Saudi Arabia, there was a king named Faisal who was modernizing certain aspects of life. So his father had been king, and I think his grandfather had been king. And then when he became king, he outlawed slavery. He mandated that the upper class members of society educate their children in their country instead of sending them abroad. He limited the power of religious leaders in the country. He set up a modern welfare system, and there were other things as well. This is all from Wikipedia, so hopefully it's some semi-accurate. But anyhow, so I was wondering if maybe this was the inspiration in part for the plot of this Columbo, but also, like you mentioned, Paul, there were those other things happening in LA.
Yeah, I bet that they did sort of a piecemeal.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Yeah. So how long had that king been in power since in 75, or was it just like for a decade or a few years or?
Yeah, maybe like a decade. Yeah. He was actually assassinated while he was in power, like a couple years after this was filmed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
All right. So anyhow, that was the little tidbit that I found that I thought was interesting, that who knows, but maybe had provided a little inspiration to the writers.
Sure.
Columbo leaves the protesters. He's allowed inside the grounds through the gates. And as he's going past the cars, he's so clever. He's chatting about the cars. He's like, "Oh, this is a really pretty car."
Mm-hmm.
The king's car? Is this Hassan's car? And he learns that Hassan's car is 2 blocks away at a city garage getting repaired. And Columbo shows up for this party. He's allowed to enter, but they ask, I assume that you're dressed appropriately. And he sheds his raincoat to reveal a tuxedo. This is 2 episodes in a row, Paul, where we get to see
I know.
Columbo in a tuxedo.
Rare.
I mean, very rare. I love his line though. He says, "It's my brother-in-law's. He's a waiter." So so he's wearing a waiter's tuxedo, but he still looks great. And then he starts talking about how his wife said his pants should be striped.
Oh, that's really funny. I love that.
I love it. And
he's like, no one's wearing striped pants.
Xenia's escorting him. She's like,
that seems real, kind of.
Yeah,
even though Levinson and Link didn't care if you knew if she was real or not.
Right.
But just that weird dialogue of like, where is that? Like he has nothing to gain by telling her this.
She's definitely real, Paul. Come on. 100%.
That's right, because there's the phone call.
Yeah, I love that little tidbit, that little detail. And then he's saying, like you said, he's like, so far I don't see one pair of striped pants. And Xenia's like, what's that? What are you talking about? And he's like, oh, nothing. It's my wife. She said I should wear striped pants. It's a good little moment of humor. And Xenia's wearing a dress that it's a really pretty like shade of plum, and it's just a solid, like very simple dress. It reminds me very much of the dresses that we saw in Candidate for Crime and A Deadly State of Mind. I wonder if it's the same designer. It's like this kind of stretchy-ish, soft, but slightly shiny fabric. Anyhow, but Xenia is wearing a fancy necklace over it, and it's a different neckline, but it looks really similar to what we've seen before. This scene inspired our drink option number 2, which is champagne, because I forgot that it's not actually champagne coming out until I already sent you the totally did. I sent you the my little text, and then I was watching it and I was like, oh yeah, they're drinking juice.
Isn't that the one from Blueprint for Murder?
Probably.
Remember the thing that poured all the champagne?
I thought that one was more like little
Was it different?
Little like individual streams of, I don't know. I'll have to look at that again. Maybe we can dig up a photo from both champagne fountains. So he gets a glass of what I thought was champagne, and then he learns he's like, oh, it tastes funny, and he learns it's juice. Mm-hmm. He shows off his knowledge from one of the vases that's on display that he almost broke. He's like, oh, 3rd century. And someone's like, oh, very good.
And there's the objects again, right?
Yeah.
Showing them to the public now.
And now the estate sale is on the lawn. Columbo is walking through the crowd. He finds the king and Hassan, and he almost gets cut off from the king. The guards are, startled and ready to pounce. But the king greets him, says hello. He gets to talk with him briefly. And then Hassan pulls him away, says, you really need to leave here within 5 minutes or you're going to lose your job with the LAPD. Before we move on to their little conversation, I just want to point out that there is some very interesting food items at this party. There's like a giant pile of fruit, not cut fruit, just like a whole banana and like whole bananas and whole oranges and whole apples. And I'm guessing that was just one way to decorate. Mm-hmm. And then, I don't know if you noticed this, but there was a tray of these strange pink rectangles of food.
Spam, right?
No. Spam?
Yeah, it was spam.
Giant rectangles of spam?
Just kidding. I have no idea.
Anyhow, it was fun looking at the food. And I do wish we had better footage of the food, but it is what it is. I know that's not what makes Columbo great.
Carrots.
And there's definitely some kind of like meat in a chafing dish, some kind of like roast or something brown. But those pink rectangles really had me scratching my head over here. Like, what are they?
Maybe it's a dessert of some sort.
It might be some dessert, yeah. Hassan pulls Columbo aside because Columbo says that he solved the murder. And of course, Hassan has to hear what he has to say. And Columbo says, I know you didn't do the murders all by yourself. I know you had Rahman's help when you murdered Youssef. So Columbo starts laying out everything that he knows. He says he knows that Youssef was dead before Hassan left the legation because of the coffee cup that was full of coffee and cold and had been filled at 3 p.m. Hassan says, you don't have a single shred of evidence. And as soon as our king leaves, I'm going to file a formal complaint. And you need to leave immediately. So 2 guards start, they grab Columbo and they're basically like dragging him away. And Columbo says, oh, wait, just one more thing. And he pulls out his apology letter. He's like, here's my official apology letter.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that moment. It's really good. Okay, well, there's just 2 scenes left here. The king and his entourage are heading to the airport, and the king gets on a private jet. And we have Hassan has another one of his sayings. He says, the throne. So the new head of security says, there's something of the father in the son. And then Hassan says, the throne makes the king, not the blood. And that, I think, is a saying that not just Hassan's saying. I think that's one that's maybe in the Bible, or I don't know. But now we're back at the legation, and Columbo's sitting on the ground, sitting in the driveway, leaning up against the pillar of the gate.
I love that.
Oh, me too. He's like sitting on
hilarious.
That's like his little blanket, and then he's got like a crumpled brown paper bag in his hands.
It's awesome. He cannot rest until he takes his man down or his woman down. And then he like jumps in front, like, don't,
He jumps right in front of the car, arms out, like they're not going to see him. He's got to put his arms out also and kind of wave them around. He comes up to Hassan's car window with a sandwich in one hand. Pretty sure it's a cheese sandwich on white bread. He's got a sandwich in one hand. He's like, if I can please talk to you just 3 minutes. I just want to apologize. And Hassan says, okay, you can pass. And so the cars pass him, and then Columbo's like running up the driveway behind the cars to go talk to Hassan.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Yeah. This is the last scene. Columbo says, I want to shake your hand. You're the best. You beat me.
He means it, but...
He means it, but also here's another Columbo trap, and Hassan walks right into it. Hassan starts loosely admitting to it without giving a ton of information to Columbo. And Columbo wants to know, why did you do this? And he says, the struggle for power in my country is none of your business. So again, we don't really get a clear motive other than the fact that probably it was about the money, right?
And he's very kind to him. She shifts everything. Oh, okay, come on, sit down.
He's so nice. I think this is like the only time we see him smile in the whole episode. He smiles and he laughs. And Columbo says, I have a feeling you wouldn't be so expansive if you didn't have diplomatic immunity. And then we get a boom, big surprise. The king is there. And the king has overheard this conversation and says that they are going to take Hassan back to Sawari, and he'll face justice there, which sounds like it's not very modern justice. It sounds like it's something very old, inconsistent with the new king's ways. But And that's when Hassan says, "Okay, I'll stay here. I beg you, Columbo, to take me in." And he's like, I'll even sign a confession. And Columbo's like, "Well, okay." And he pulls out a confession from
Yeah. And tea. We could have had tea, Liz. You forgot they had tea. I
Oh,
forgot to.
yeah.
I mean, I thought they had, but I didn't quite remember.
Yeah, tea would have been good. Yeah. So Columbo's brought us confession already, 3 copies. He's like, "Will you sign on each of these?" Hassan doesn't even read it. He says, "I am your prisoner." And the king reminds Hassan that if he, for any reason, decided to go back on this confession, that he would come home and face their method of justice, which, whatever it is, it's much worse.
Mm-hmm.
So they take Hassan out. The king gives Columbo a thumbs up. And once again, Columbo doesn't look super happy about catching his man. I mean, obviously he really wanted to, but it's another one of those moments where he's like, another murderer. His facial expression it's not, like victorious.
Oh, I love it. He does this like kind of waves off the thumbs up. It's beautiful. Like that I love that little moment at the very end there where he just like waves his hand back and forth. But they were in a plane. They must have landed somewhere. They took a helicopter. Didn't they say, "I got in a helicopter over here" or something like that?
Yes. Well, I don't know if the plane actually took off or
No, it does take off. He says he watched it take off. Oh, like it just drove down. I think that like just drove down the runway.
yeah, because the king said he wasn't on it, and he got on a helicopter instead, I think.
Either way, we know he's able to get back there on time.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what airport they went to.
Yeah, exactly.
So what do you think, Liz? What's your rating on this one?
Oh, Paul, I was thinking about this, and like I always say, I always like appreciate new parts of an episode when I rewatch it, and this one is the same. I think there's some really funny moments in here where I was laughing out loud, and I really like the acting.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Hector Elizondo was great. I thought Sal Mineo was great. I like those pink rectangles of food, mystery food. When I watch this one, I get this feeling of beige on beige. Like,
isn't that a Bob Dylan album?
I don't know, maybe. There's so much beige in the set, but then I was thinking about it. Even the emotion level in this episode is very muted and kind of dull. We don't have any big feelings. Hector Elizondo's character is very even-keeled and subtle. It's lacking a little bit of that drama that is fun. Also, there's not a lot of glamour, even though there is the big fancy party. I feel like we don't get to appreciate it. Like when I think back to Prescription Murder, for example, there's this party in this apartment and very close up of all of these people with their feather trimmed dresses and cigarettes and martinis. And this one, there is a party, but you're kind of seeing it from far away. And I don't know. So anyhow, also my other issue is that the motive is not super compelling. Is it just for the money? Is there something else that could help explain what's happening? Couldn't he just have embezzled that money? I don't know.
Yeah, instead of setting up this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. All that being said, I think I rate this one like a 6 out of 10.
Liz.
And a low. I know.
I don't know if Mom's gonna like that, or Dad. Yeah, no, I have that same feeling, and I think part of it is with the drab, and I think Hector Elizondo could have. I mean, they don't have rehearsal. They're in and out. Elizondo just goes with it, right? And he's good. At the end there, though, him signing it, it makes sense. Like, oh, no, I just want to stay with him. But there's no, yeah, you could have had some more, like, upsetness and, like drama, like you said. Some real, like, show this guy being real upset or mean or, mad. But it's sort of like, it's light, It's not, you don't feel an impending doom for him necessarily, It's almost comedic that he's going to sign really quickly.
Yeah,
like
totally comedic.
And that kind of this director Ted Post was known for turning really bad stuff into good stuff, and they kept him in TV a lot. He did some Clint Eastwood stuff, really good stuff, Magnum Force, and his TV movies were cool too. I watched a couple of them that I really enjoyed, and I think also just being mostly in the location that's all the same color, hurts it in a certain sense, It does have all these great little moments, or some of them are not that short. They're several minutes, like in the kitchen. So yeah, I would give this one, for me, probably a C. Like a 70. So not great. It's sort of average.
Yeah.
I enjoyed watching it again, and I'll watch it again for sure. It feels like it's like lacking. It's like it's missing something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a good premise. I like it being there.
I also was going to comment on the locations. It felt like we were just at the police department, which was in the studio, or at the legation, like back and forth and back and forth. And we don't really get a sense of place, of Los Angeles, even just a shot of Columbo driving down the street, to kind of break it up, taking his dog for ice cream or.
Yeah, there's no wide shots or anything like that, or exterior shots that I remember too much.
Just the protesters, but even that was like relatively close up. I mean, I was getting nauseous at one of those.
Well, don't project it. Just watch it on a little screen. You don't need to project. It's just a TV show. It's just 4x3, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think, and also did you need to have, it's kind of funny with him with the protesters. That was kind of funny, but maybe it goes on too long talking to the guy to explain the situation, Perhaps they could have shown that. Ted Post was known for changing script that other people had written, like Martin Wright, or Ritt, R-I-T-T, is a famous director who did a lot of TV too, is like Ted Post did, and he got upset with Ted Post for changing. But Ted's like, man, we got to serve the story. We got to change. This is not working. He was a top-notch director. I mean, I did like the gotcha at the end. I thought that was pretty good, and the immunity thing. It's got a lot of smart stuff to it. But yeah, I would say 70 C. So now I got some true false for you.
You got some true false? Let's hear it.
I got 3 for you. Okay.
Oh boy.
So you're saying he has all these sayings, said Hassan, played by Hector Elizondo. In real life, Hector Elizondo had his own sayings too.
Oh.
Here are 2 of Hector Elizondo's real life sayings.
Okay, let's hear it.
Judge a person's character by how they treat those who can do nothing for them or to them. Did you get that?
Uh-huh.
Beware of people who want to be your friend without knowing you.
Paul, you're trying to not laugh right now. Oh, I'm going to say that false, that he did not say those things.
He did.
No.
Gotcha.
Paul, you're
Hector Elizondo said those 2 things. Judge a person's character by how they treat those who can do nothing for them or to them.
Oh.
Beware of people who want to be your friend without knowing you. It was in a interesting book by Rose Eichenbaum, and what else was it's called The Actor Within: Intimate Conversations with Great Actors. And they asked, do you have any advice for actors?
Oh, cool.
But Elizondo had several sayings. So I wonder if, maybe he brought some of that to,
totally.
to the show.
Totally.
Okay. All right, Liz, you got 2 more. Let's see what you can do.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so true or false, Hector Elizondo helped Richard Kiley get his first acting job. Remember Richard Kiley?
Oh, yes.
A Friend Indeed?
Yes.
He was the main bad guy in that.
I like Richard Kiley. I'm going to say true.
False.
Ah, Paul.
The director, Ted Post, helped Richard Kiley get his first, and I think it was a theater play that he was doing with Bela Lugosi. So Ted Post was directing, and it might have been in the Catskills or something. It's in a really interesting book. It has an interview with Brett Halsey, Ion Science Fiction, and there's an interview here with Ted Post about working with Bela Lugosi.
Wow.
And Richard Kiley was in some of Ted Post's stuff, but they had held auditions for I think it was the Bela Lugosi play. I can't remember for sure, but Bela Lugosi plays Dracula in the play. Mm-hmm. But he saw this guy waiting, and he said, who came late to the auditions, and he's like, "Are the auditions over?" And it was Richard Kiley, and he said, "Yeah, you missed him." And he said, "Oh man!" So he just started talking to him, and he liked him, and it's like, "Well, we'll find you something. I'll get you something." So it made it sound like he had given him his first, real kind of work to do in acting. I think he talks a little bit more about him. All right, Liz.
I'm not doing good tonight. 0 for 2.
Okay, so Peter Falk got angry at Sal Mineo for coming in several hours early to filming, and he said he was angry. He said, "Don't you ever do that again."
Well, that seems weird because they don't have any scenes together, right?
Right.
Do you want to give more context for this?
Mineo wanted to get to work on time. Sometimes driving in LA, you don't know what traffic's going to be like, so you got to get there early. And since Peter Falk would show up late, he felt it was kind of weird, and he didn't want Mineo to be there early. He I think it was more out of, this is my show, and take your time. I'll be here. You don't need to come this early.
Okay, I'm going to say that's true. I'm going to say it's true. Is it true?
It's not true.
Ah, dang. Oh, man. 0 for 3 tonight.
So Peter Falk got mad at Ted Post. Ted Post had shot a bunch of footage. Peter Falk wasn't there. So he got the day shooting. You have, let's say you have 8 scenes to do for that day on schedule. He got like 5 of them out of the way that didn't have Peter Falk. Peter Falk came to the set. Ted Post was like, "Hey, man, look, I got these done." And he said, Peter Falk started shouting at him, was really angry. "Don't you ever do that again." He's like, "I want to make the guys in the Black Tower pay for everything. We don't need to give them a break on anything." So Ted Post is just doing a good job. I'll bang these out before Peter's even here. That's the kind of quick, but he does another episode. So they obviously in the end, they like Ted as a director. I would have guessed that.
They didn't get too mad at him.
Yeah. Okay, Liz, here, I can give you another one.
Oh, great. Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, 1980, Hector Elizondo plays a detective in the film American Gigolo. And the lead is played by Richard Gere. In the film, Hector Elizondo, he says something like, one more thing to Richard Gere, before he leaves, because Richard Gere is is a suspect, and Elizondo is the lead detective, like Columbo. And so they're questioning him, and then they let him go, and they said, "Oh, just one more thing." Something like that. He didn't say just one more thing, but something like that.
So you basically are forfeiting this one. So I get
remember correctly, is it true or false?
It's an incomplete question.
I know. I'm sorry. We'll just give you one anyway, okay, Liz?
You should be sorry.
1 out of 4, okay?
Okay, I'm taking it.
Okay, here's another one. Okay, the character's name is Habib, right?
Yes.
Rahman Habib.
Yes.
So in that film I mentioned before that I edited called The Education of a Negro, and in that the character who likes Columbo, the bad lieutenant who likes the Columbo, he says, "Yeah, one of the guy who worked at the store, his name was Habib or something like that. I can't remember the guy's name. Is that true or false? Does he say something like that in the movie?"
Okay.
These are terrible questions. These
You're
are terrible.
asking me if someone said that in the movie. The
one I edited. Yeah.
Okay.
And the guy who says that is the guy. He's a bad lieutenant. He's a bad cop. And he loves Columbo. That character loves Columbo in the movie. Like he talks about Columbo. To the suspect says, "You ever watch Columbo? That's a great TV show. You should watch that." Not exactly like that, but
there's a lot of parts to this trivia. You're saying
okay. Good night, everybody. We'd like to thank Maxime Gervais for our theme song, Columbo.
Thank you,
and
Maxime.
John Juanetas,
our editor. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
If you'd like to add to our conversation or would like us to read your email on our podcast, you can email us at trenchcoatcigar@gmail.com. You can find photos from the episode at Instagram, our Instagram, which is at trenchcoatcigar. And if you would like to support the show, you can support us on Patreon. The link is in the show notes, and you will get access to video recordings of our podcast. And Paul, one more thing.
Thanks for putting up with us.
Thanks for listening.
Rien à foutre devant l'expertise policière. T'avais un plan sans faille, pensez à chaque détail. L'inspecteur Colombo pensera toujours en dehors de la boîte. Toujours un cousin qui a eu un lavoto, qui a fait de